Welcome to the Megacast, our live, local, 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today, we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders like you. Let's get started with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our first article comes from Dana Afana at the Detroit Free Press. The city of Detroit filed a new lawsuit against the U.S. Census Bureau yesterday, claiming the Bureau has once again inaccurately reported the major city's population. The 2021 census's findings show Detroit's population dropped to 639,111 residents, a number that seemed shockingly low to Mayor Mike Duggan. The lawsuit lays claim that Census Bureau Director Robert Santos admitted to undercounting several typically undercounted demographics, including African Americans and Hispanic residents, and overcounting the white population in the city. On the lawsuit's details, Mayor Duggan said, quote, "Just on his admission, we know that they should have corrected 20,000 residents in the 2021 estimate. We were shocked when the Census Bureau put out the 2021 estimate and said that in the last year, Detroit lost another 7,100 people. Now, this just defies reality, where there's cranes all over the city. In the one-year period in 2021, 14 new major apartment buildings with 1,000 units opened during that time. And my question is, how could anybody conclude we lost 7,000 people in 1 year?" End closed quote. Also making headlines today on our news page, CivicCenterTV.com, from the team at the Detroit News. Some good news for travelers heading north to Canada in October, as the Canadian government is expected to drop its COVID-19 vaccine requirement in order to cross its border all across the union. Citing a close source, the Associated Press also said they reported that Canada will end random testing at airports as well at that time. Earlier this year, the requirements were among the reasons behind a nationwide protest by truckers in Canada, whose acts of protest included blocking the Ambassador Bridge between Windsor and Detroit for an entire week. Finally, making headlines today on our local news page at CivicCenterTV.com from Tanda Gmitter at MLive. It may be time to clean out your gardens as the first freeze of the fall is on its way. The first time temps go lower than 32 Fahrenheit tends to be the end of the line for plant life in your garden. With the uncertainty from our fluctuating temperatures of late, now might be the time to call it a season for your plants. Across the Great Lakes states, some of the average first freeze dates from the National Weather Service are listed as in the UP, September 27th for Marquette and October 1st for Sault Ste. Marie and the northern lower peninsula. Alpena, September 22nd, Alpena, September 21st, Gaylord is September 22nd, and October 7th for those in Traverse City. On the west side of the state, Holland on the 11th of October, Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo on the 13th, and Muskegon on October 14th. And here in central and southeast Michigan, Lansing, October 1, Flint, October 9, Port Huron, October 21st, and Detroit on October 22nd. Still some time left in the season, but playing with a little bit of fire, or in this case with ice, leaving your plants out in the garden when temperatures continue to fluctuate between the hot weather of the summer and the cooler weather of the fall. All of those headlines are on our website, CivicCenterTV.com, on our local news page, along with those links to updated COVID-19 information federally from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the statewide Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and locally from the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great program ahead on this Thursday edition of the Megacast. Up next, we'll have our weekly mental health conversation with Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic. This is the Megacast.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations all across the Great Lakes State, including My Michigan TV. Each and every week, we talk about a different topic on mental health with the Birmingham Maple Clinic's Carrie Krawiec, and she's back today to talk about another important topic. Carrie, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So across our lives in different areas, in our social life and our family life, certainly in our work life, we try to maintain relationships of all different kinds and all different levels of closeness and acquaintanceship. However, sometimes those relationships can go awry. In terms of what people can look for, what are some of those signs that people should be looking for in the way that they're interacting with other people to kind of get some notice that, okay, maybe this relationship is starting to take a turn for the worse, and maybe I need to take some steps to repair it?
Sure. I think that guilt and resentment are two indicators that a relationship is swinging in one direction or another. So if you're feeling especially bad, or you're getting the feedback that you feel you've done something wrong, or someone is indicating that you have, that would be one side. Or if you are feeling that someone else has done something wrong. So guilt is the feeling of anxiety that we've done something to hurt or harm someone else. And resentment is the feeling of anger that someone else has done something to hurt or harm us. So those are two indicators that our relationship may be fluctuating.
And so often when you have those issues come up, some people, if it's a personal issue with you, may take the approach of, well, they don't like it, they don't have to deal with me anymore. I'm just going to push them out of my life. In some cases, you can't do that, or it's really not the best way to go about things to do that, because it's a close family relationship, or it's a work relationship, or it's something else that it's a different kind of a relationship that you're going to be encountering pretty often. So when you reach that stage where that relationship has broken down, there is some tension there, there's definitely some significant conflict that's causing a rift. What are those first steps that you would suggest people take themselves in order to look at the situation from the other person's perspective and maybe figure out what they can do to improve that relationship, or B, to approach that other person and try to extend an olive branch, so to speak, and repair that relationship?
Sure. I think in both examples, like you laid it out perfectly. So the first step is taking inventory. What are my behaviors? What am I doing that's contributing to this problem? Can you kind of be insightful and introspective and say, are there things about me that are making this situation hard? And then you might ask the next step, which is there something that this person is doing that is making me uncomfortable? Can it be changed or addressed? Or do I need to take time or space away from this person. And I think also initially, before a huge sever has happened, taking some strategies, what can you control? So if I know this person makes me uncomfortable because, after a certain time of a holiday party, they've drank too much, then you take account and say, look, then I'm going to strategize and I'm going to leave by 4 or 5. So I avoid the situation. It doesn't mean you don't go at all. It doesn't mean you cause a big stir. You can do subtle things to change your behavior to create the boundaries you need, right? And so then, and sometimes it's also communicating those. If there are certain boundaries, you say, like, I am going to leave at a certain time for this reason. If you'd like me to stay, be aware that these are my parameters. But and if another person isn't compliant, you have to be the one that's responsible for yourself.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec on today's edition of the Megacast. More information on the Birmingham Maple Clinic can be found on birminghammaple.com. That is birminghammaple.com for more information. Carrie, there's a cliche that time heals all wounds. I don't entirely believe that. I believe it as more of time heals some wounds. That scar tissue is going to develop over time. It's natural that people will endure and let go on some of these things that are causing these relationship issues. But in terms of making those repairs or making those efforts to make those repairs, how important is timing in that? Because on the one hand, you let that kind of fester, that can make things boil over a little bit more aggressively than they would have if you intervene early on. On the other side, you have to gauge that maybe somebody needs some space before you're able to engage them in this. The situation's just a little bit too hot. So what do you have to say in terms of the timing of someone approaching making those initial repairs?
Yeah, I think you bring some interesting points. It's what happens during that time that's going to contribute to healing the wound. If you can take that time and maybe have some understanding, maybe look back at the history of the family relationships, maybe look back at some of the personality traits of this person that and really be, if you can use that time to say, look, I can understand why this person behaves this way. This is how my brother, sister, mother, whomever has always behaved. So of course, it makes sense to me that they would act like this at this time, even if I don't like it. Time, if you can use the time to sort of again, give yourself some grace and the other person some grace, the intensity of the feelings may lower. Like you said, if you use that time to sort of stack your arsenal with more and more evidence of how this person has wronged you or been inappropriate or whatever, you're going to go into any interaction, right, ready for war. So I like you said, kind of time heals all wounds. Last week, you and I talked about sports and sports injuries and how those things may parlay into mental health. That it's like slow and steady wins the race, trying something delicate, trying something small first. I often tell people too, it shouldn't be all one. If you're repairing a relationship that's been severed, you're not only doing the work of healing the relationship. Some of it has to be just moving forward with polite, nice, current things. So it's a little bit of a 3-legged race. It's not sweeping it under the rug, but it's putting a little bit in the bank of let's just do, let's participate in holidays. Let's do these things, get familiar and comfortable with each other again. Then separate from that, set up times, maybe use the therapist, maybe construct specific times with boundaries and outlines, of who's going to be present, how long is it going to last, what do we intend to discuss, but not let that interfere with just regular family stuff.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic on today's edition of the Megacast, talking about conflict in our day-to-day life and when peace and reconciliation can be achieved in relationships that have a rift of all different kinds. And Carrie, it's different when it's family. When it is a friend situation, you can work to repair that and you can let them know that, hey, this behavior that you're doing or these behaviors that you're exhibiting are hurting me. I don't appreciate when you do this to me. It makes me feel bad. And if they don't reciprocate that with, okay, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I'm sorry I put you in that sort of position. Here's what I'm going to do to change, or at least level with you and have a conversation on what they may be doing wrong. You can move on from that relationship, and it will be tough, but you can move on from that. With family, it's a lot different. In some cases, you either can't move on, or it's really, really tough to make a decision to break away from people of your family. It's one of those things that really should just be that absolute last resort. So when it comes to family, how does that change the game in terms of approaching these sorts of situations and these sorts of conflicts?
Sure. And I think, I mean, you bring up an interesting point, and I'm thinking, I mean, I know some of it is just speculation, but I think about the princes and their wives is how do you define family, right? So if the married in partners are having conflict, is that family? If the biologically related people are having conflict, if that's family, if it's one marital partner and somebody else biologically related, right? Look, what are the boundaries? What things in the family can everybody acknowledge? Maybe like these roles are intertwined in ways that complicate it because maybe the definition of family means something different to each of the people involved. So certainly, again, the same thing like we talked about, starting out small, setting out expectations. Who are our key players in the conflict? Who plays a role in keeping the conflict maintaining? Are there other allies or other people who could be involved to be helpful to the situation, and are they willing to do so? Or are they not willing to do so? And what are the consequences of it going on? Does that mean there's, say, for example, separate holidays or exclusion? Is everybody willing to sort of autograph a contract that says, okay, we're okay with it going on this way? Or are people willing to come to the table and brainstorm some solutions and say, well, I'm willing to do this or contribute in this way if it makes it better for everybody?
More information and ways to get in contact with the Birmingham Maple Clinic and their team, including Carrie, can be found birminghammaple.com or by calling them 248-646-6659, 248-646-6659. And this is all kind of sparked from what's been in the news of late across the ocean in the United Kingdom with the continued controversy, so to speak, within the royal family. In the United Kingdom, particularly with Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle, who his wife has not quite particularly been welcomed into that family in a very amicable way. And it was even put on example during some of the funeral services for the late Queen Elizabeth II. And so in that sort of a situation, when you are welcoming somebody else into your family, this is a loved one of yours that is becoming part of your family by way of marriage or just a significant relationship in your life, what do you suggest people do to achieve that balance between managing those relationships with their family that have been developed over years, over decades, and managing them accepting and bringing in this new person that maybe does things a little bit differently, maybe isn't familiar with all the traditions and the relationships within that family, but is ultimately a part of that family?
Sure, or centuries, and with regards to the royal family.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's such a symbol because it's absolutely true. When you're bringing in a new marital partner, there's two things at play, and there's their relationship symbolically highlights this. Is you're absolutely right. You are creating a new culture that's including history, traditions, rituals from two prior cultures. Like when you're traveling to another country, you may, for example, be expected to do things that are not commonplace in the country you're from. Say, for example, you must wear pants or long skirts when entering a place of worship or something like that, right? And so when you are traveling to another country, are you respectful of their traditions? Do you understand what they are? Do you try to honor them to the best of your ability or excuse yourself when you cannot? And can we think of our families that way? Are we taking time to understand the history? How did some of these come to play? Being both curious and compassionate to say, oh, that's so funny. We don't do that in my family. Would you like to hear what we do? Or do you have any interest in doing it differently, and how has it worked for you? As opposed to just assuming there's a right way and a wrong way, or that you're somehow entitled to do things your way because you've done them. Perhaps offering there might be some alternatives, but I'm also willing to sort of respect what is done and what has been done historically here, or at least understand the reasons why.
Carrie, a couple more minutes with you on today's edition of the program. You can find more information on birminghammaple.com to get in contact with them as well. If you're having some of these issues in your life and your family life, certainly in your work life and your social life, and you need some help working through these situations on a more personal level, it's always helpful to talk to a professional. 248-646-6659. Carrie, anything else that we should be considering on this topic or other mental health topics at this time?
Sure. I think with exactly what you said, family therapists can be helpful if the person is willing to come to the table to provide the structure, to provide a time and a space to be separate from your other family engagements and involvement to really tease out some of the issues. But therapy can also be beneficial individually. Perhaps you make an attempt to reach out to someone or someone to you and you're not sure you're ready. An individual therapist can help work on what skills and resources you need to feel sort of protected and open. What are the barriers? Have there been traumas or other things? And perhaps your instinct or intuition to not re-engage this person is the right one. And a therapist could give that affirmation and validation as well.
Well, Carrie, appreciate your time. Thank you for your insight as well and helping people kind of get a baseline to go from on some of these really complicated issues when it comes to managing relationships all across your life.
Thank you for having me.
BirminghamMaple.com for more information. You can also call them at 248-646-6659, BirminghamMaple.com. We'll take a break. On the other side, we've heard throughout history issues that have come along with the banning of certain kinds of books or certain titles of books in the past. That issue coming to the forefront here in the United States as of late. Coming up next, we'll talk to Bill Haney, the book guy, who you often will see on one of our partners at Independence Television, about that issue and more. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about the program on our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast. We'll find more information on all of our partnering stations and find all of our shows on demand, as well as individual interviews. You can watch us on your time and at your own pace and in your local community as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us on the Megacast once again, it's been a while since we've last talked to him, but he is back with us now. Bill Haney is a book publisher and an author himself, and you can also find him on Independence Television talking about books very often here in northern Oakland County. Bill, thanks for being with us today.
Delighted to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Bill. So we've had some recent efforts across the country to ban certain kinds of books or books with certain subject matter. Now, this isn't something that is new in America or really across the globe, but it's something that has kind of crept back up of late in the United States. Let's start off with a little bit of the background of book banning and some of the issues that it has caused in the past. Can you give us some oversight on where, some insight on where that has, what that has caused historically in the past?
You're right. It's not a new phenomenon at all. It's up to now over 1,600 books have been banned just in 8 months. The old record was almost 1,600, 1,597. Not an admirable record, but you're right, it's not a new phenomenon. It's actually several hundred years old, even predating the founding of the Republic. And we've had several flare-ups over the years. And it's ironic in a way, but also yet understandable and almost predictable. Even though the country was founded on a belief in intellectual freedom, as you know, countries that stifle that freedom invariably fail, or they see their people live in poverty, ignorance, and depression, as with North Korea under the brutal, oppressive regimes of the Kim family. And of course, the people of the United States currently seeking to ban books would be the last to tolerate a ruling junta like that. I recall one episode, there have been a number that flare-ups like this. One was during the McCarthy years, and that emboldened several people to go out and people who really believe strenuously in individual choice and freedom would be the last to tolerate it themselves, but go out and try to ban books because it doesn't conform with one of their own personal prejudices. And I recall in 1970, Jim Bouton, who was a baseball pitcher, kind of an eccentric guy. And he wrote a book called Ball 4. And I remember one of his teammates, it took them a while, the producer, to find one of the teammates who didn't like him because he was very popular. And this player appeared and railed against the book. And at the end of the interview, the interviewer said, "Well, if it was that bad, why did you even finish reading it?" He said, "Oh, I didn't read it at all." He said, "I didn't have to. I already knew what it would say." So this is really typical of a lot of the people, regrettably, who go to the school board meetings and to other meetings, the library meetings, and criticize and demand the removal of a book that may not even be on the shelves in the library, may not even be ordered, but they heard about it from someone, and they certainly haven't read the book. So this has happened, as I said, many, many times throughout U.S. history.
We're joined by author and publisher Bill Haney on today's edition of the Megacast. Among some of the books that have been banned more recently in our local area, the closest nearby location where this has become a bit of a controversy and an issue has been in Dearborn, where recently the Dearborn Public Library banned 7 books, those being pushed by Sapphire, All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, and They Lived by Stephen Salvatore, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. And the commonality between many of those books is that 4 of the books follow characters who identify as LGBTQ as well. And so, Bill, you mentioned libraries under pressure, school boards under pressure to ban some of these books. From your perspective, what is the danger, particularly in libraries and in schools, following along with some of these pressures that maybe aren't necessarily coming from the entire community, but are coming from a large portion of some of these communities, given that they are places of information, places of learning, and even if they don't necessarily agree with certain lifestyles or with certain histories, that it's important for people to learn about those histories and learn about these cultures to have a broader scope of the world around them. That's the point of reading.
Absolutely. It's a question of do you believe in intellectual freedom? Do you believe in choice or not? Or do you believe in it only for things that you personally agree with, that are consistent with your own personal prejudice patterns? And so it's one era, it might be race. Mark Twain, for example, his books were banned. Many books have been banned based on the treatment of race, and some have been because of sexual content. It could be sexual identity, gender, a variety of issues that concern a small group of people typically. For example, during the Jim Crow era in the South, it was a hotbed for book censorship, really on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. The daughters, United Daughters of the Confederacy, were successful in getting books banned in the South that did not offer a sympathetic view of the South's loss in the Civil War. By the way, I lived in Marietta, Georgia for a period of time, and the Civil War is not called the Civil War down there. It's called the war between the states, or the war of northern aggression, even to this day. And that's partly one of the consequences that happens when people are successful in getting some books taken off shelves or eliminated in any way, in any mention, let alone in a classroom. And so it does give us a distorted view of history, and an incorrect one that's dangerous for people. And, our young people have succeeded in a couple of times in getting legislation passed, even as up to the Supreme Court in 1982, the court took up a case in which a group of students sued a New York school board because it had taken off books by Kurt Vonnegut, whom actually I knew a bit, and Langston Hughes, because they were deemed anti-American or anti-Christian or anti-Semitic or anti-whatever. And the students succeeded. And so that is law of the land. It's hardly ever enforced, but the law says specifically, local school boards may not remove books from school libraries simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books. That was called, the court ruling was in Island Trees Union Free School District versus Pico, and it cited the First Amendment rights of students. So it actually is the law of the land that they can't remove books simply because they don't like the content that some small group, which often, unfortunately, has not even read the books and has no clue as to whether they're in the library, assigned in a class, or anything. They picked it up on social media from one group or another that this is bad, 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 and then they run with it without really thinking seriously about it.
We're joined by Bill Haney, the book guy, on today's edition of the Megacast. You can find his programming on Independence Television, Conversations with Bill in Northern Oakland County, and he's also a book publisher as well as an author as well. So, Bill, just before we let you go, again, another 2 minutes left. with you. What do you suggest can be done at the community level to combat this issue? On the one side, you have people that are going after some of these books, trying to get them out of libraries, trying to get them out of schools, and in some cases, those institutions obliging. What can people do that are on the opposite side of that argument and would argue that whether or not they agree with what is in that book or what the characters are or what the stories are being told in that book, that it should be available for people to broaden their horizons and make their own informed decisions after reading these materials?
You're right. That's the principle right there, is the freedom of choice. Even if you don't espouse the principles or the ideas that are in a given book, if you truly believe in the Constitution and the intellectual freedom this country was founded on, then you've got to support the intelligent choice of books by people who really know what they're doing and have read the books, as a matter of fact, to see if they have social value. But communication is just crucial. So I would say that rather than adding to the hysteria, because frequently these meetings degenerate into histrionics and pontificating about principles that are important to that group. And it doesn't help any to add to that by trying to outshout those people, but by calmly suggesting what's at stake here and communicating, whether it's through letters to the editors, and unfortunately we don't have many newspapers left, but communicating in every way that you can how important it is that we not infringe on the rights of others with our own individual preferences and prejudice patterns.
You can hear more conversations on this issue and other issues that are also found in many of the books that you'll be reading at your local library or in your own home with Bill, and Conversations with Bill from Independence Television. Find more information and times to watch it on independencetelevision.com. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Nice to be with you. See you again. Be well.
You as well. We'll take a quick break on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll talk Michigan travel with Kelly Wolgamott from Pure Michigan. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine. To keep safe and strong. Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. You'll find information on all of our partnering stations, including My Michigan TV, and find us on demand as well. We're into the fall season now, officially now the second day of the fall season. And here to talk about fall travel all across the Great Lakes State is Kelly Wolgamott. She is the Director of Travel Marketing for Pure Michigan and joins us on today's edition of the Megacast. Kelly, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. And the weather outside is definitely fall-like today. We're enjoying this.
Yes, it's an exciting time of year for many people who love to come to Michigan in the fall season, see the colors change, experience the cider mills, and so much other fun and events happening all throughout the Great Lakes State. What are your some of your favorite fall events and fall happenings that people should be paying attention to this fall that are happening across Michigan?
You know, I really love the road trip, right? And I think the road trip in Michigan is just such a great road trip destination, and it doesn't disappoint in the fall, right? And to see the beautiful leaves and the cute, quaint towns along the coastline. There's a lot of opportunities for taking that road trip and stopping along the way to experience the towns, the culture, head to the cider mill, grab a couple pumpkins. Specifically, I think the West Michigan Pike is such a great experience. You can go all the way from New Buffalo, Michigan, all the way up to Mackinac City and just provide you with just a great road trip opportunity.
And Kelly, in terms of road tripping this fall, one of the reasons people love to road trip in Michigan is in the fall is to see the colors in so many different landscapes and so many different areas of Michigan, because there are so many different kinds of places, beach towns, forestry. There's lakefront, and so many different places that often have that different angle, that different combination of colors. So when do you suggest that people are coming into Michigan, they don't know a whole lot about the state, but they know that there's great fall foliage? When do you suggest is the best time of the year for them to come into Michigan, take some time to go on a road trip and explore the colors all throughout the Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula?
Yeah, so color prediction is an art, right? So we're all relying on Mother Nature and how the leaf color does progress through the state. So Upper Peninsula is going to start first, and you are seeing some color pop there now. But within the next couple of weeks, you're going to see some peak color up in the Upper Peninsula, and throughout the Lower Peninsula now too. You are seeing some dots of that color, but that will be probably early October, which has traditionally been the time that people can experience that, peak color season. But, all through October is also a wonderful time to experience the nature, and you'll still see some color throughout the Lower Peninsula.
And it's also a great time for wine lovers in the state of Michigan. People talk about cider as being a favorite in the fall all across Michigan, and that's very much the case. There are great cider mills all across the state in all different regions, but there's also a lot of great wineries, and people love to explore those wineries in the fall season on the weekends, and then take a road trip or even take a week-long trip and explore many of them all across the state. Where are some of your favorite locations in Michigan to explore some of our wineries?
Yeah, so, we're really fortunate in Michigan, right? Because we do have two distinct areas in the state that produce a lot of wine, and specifically Traverse City. Everyone's very familiar with Traverse City and the wine industry up there in the Old Mission Peninsula and Leelanau. Just beautiful scenery and just beautiful winery experiences. And they are really experiences now, right? Tour the winery, sit back, have some food and just explore their grounds, which is incredibly beautiful. But also in Southwest Michigan, there's the fertile soil there as well, the moderate temperatures that provide just a really dynamic winemaking opportunity. And there's, a lot of different wineries in the Southwest Michigan, like the Brown Bar, St. Julian, that are also provide, those great experiences for fall wine experience.
We're joined by Kelly Wolgamott, the Director of Travel Marketing at Pure Michigan, joining us on today's edition of the Megacast. Your trip begins at michigan.org to find more information on everything you can do in the fall here in the Great Lakes State. And Kelly, it's also a great time of the year for exploring Michigan's trails. So many different rails to trails networks here in southeastern Michigan, but also really great inland trails and interforest trails as well that people can explore. Where are some of your favorite locations for those that like to hike, those that like to do some biking along Michigan's trails, especially now in the fall season when the weather is so much nicer and you can spend a whole day outside on these trails and make a trip of it?
Yeah, and it's actually, I believe this week is Michigan Trail Week, because we do have the most trails of any state. And as you mentioned, a lot of different unique opportunities that are along the water. Also inland as well, that provides you just a really great experience and reconnect with your family and friends and get outdoors and, get that exercise. Fall is really a beautiful time. I know everyone, gravitates to the Sleeping Bear Dune region area in the summer months, but that's a really unique opportunity too in the fall, and the beauty there along the water and the trails. Hartwick Pines is also a beautiful trail, also an accessible trail as well. Throughout the state, there's so many different accessible trails to get out and experience from individuals that, may need that extra, for mobility reasons.
You mentioned the small cities of Michigan, too. It's a great time of the year to explore those cities, especially as the peak season of the year, the summer, is coming to an end, and these businesses are trying to get that last little bit of surge before things not necessarily end for the year, slow down entirely for the year, but kind of coast throughout the rest of the year instead of the surge of the spring and the summer. Where are some of your favorite and most interesting small town locations for people to visit within Michigan, if they're in Michigan or if they're coming from out of state, and make a whole trip out of these interesting little towns that all have some different wrinkle to offer?
Yeah, they really do. And, our not only Lake Michigan, along Lake Michigan, but Lake Huron. And just to point out the US 23, I think that is just a beautiful, drive throughout the fall months. Great leave opportunities to see for the leaf peepers, but also just really some cute towns like Tawas, and Oscoda, and then going all the way up to Alpena, and just providing, great experiences, not only outdoor experiences, but food and beverage. And, that US 23 corridor is a bit different from a personality side from the west side of the state. So you're going to see a bunch of, cute, quaint cottages dotting along the road. You're going to see lighthouses and, of course, the beauty of Lake Huron.
We're joined by Kelly Wolgamott from Pure Michigan on today's edition of the Megacast. Kelly, another couple minutes with you today before we'll need to wrap things up. Any other Michigan travel suggestions for the fall? Maybe some hidden gems we haven't talked about or we often don't talk about when we think of Michigan travel in the fall that people should be at least exploring maybe for this year or at least keeping in their back pocket for years to come.
Yeah, and I don't want to forget about our cities, right? We have all of these great natural destinations to get out, but we also have really dynamic cities that really, I love going to our cities. I always feel re-energized after spending some time there, from Detroit and their award-winning riverfront walk that is such a great experience, to their museums, to their shopping, as well as their dining. Also, Grand Rapids with the Frederick Meyer Gardens and Sculpture Park is such a great experience to go to. And this fall, they also have Art Prize going on right now. So that's a great family-friendly opportunity to walk through Grand Rapids and just really enjoy the personality of that city that it has to offer at this travel destination.
Explore more about Michigan in fall and some travel suggestions as well at michigan.org/fall. Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Appreciate it. Again, your trip begins at michigan.org, michigan.org/fall. If you'd like some specific directions about the fall season, you can also scroll down their page and find different guides for different seasons and different kinds of activities all throughout the state of Michigan. Extensive information on travel and tourism all throughout the Great Lakes state on Pure Michigan's website, michigan.org. That is going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Megacast. I want to remind you, tomorrow, big game in the state of Michigan, arguably the biggest game in high school football in the Lower Peninsula, is happening in Rochester at Rochester Adams. Kickoff at 7 o'clock, where the Highlanders take on the visiting West Bloomfield Lakers. Dave Scott and I will be on the call for the game. We'll be there in the afternoon. 6 p.m. is when we'll start our coverage with This Week in Laker Football. 6:30 for the Laker pregame show, as well as the My Michigan TV Game of the Week pregame show at Rochester Adams. And, of course, kickoff at 7 o'clock. We're two of the top-ranked teams in the state of Michigan and one of the strongest divisions in the state in the OAA Red Division battle on the road, a rematch of that thriller from last year's playoffs where Rochester Adams defeated West Bloomfield by just 1 point to advance to the state semifinals, which they eventually won, and then became the state runner-up to Belleville in the D1 state finals. That game, 7 o'clock, kickoff CivicCenterTV.com/LakerSports for all the coverage beginning with This Week in Laker Football at 6, the pregame show at 6:30. Big thank you to all of our guests who joined us on today's edition of the Megacast, as well as our dedicated crew. Calvin Brown at Master Control running today's edition of the show. And of course, the king of television, Larry Nyland, our producer, helping us book each and every show and helping our guests and us be prepared for informative conversations on a number of topics affecting you right here in the state of Michigan. CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. Find us on demand and find information about all of our partnering stations, including stations in your local area. And in the meantime, we'll be back tomorrow morning, Friday at 10 a.m. with a new edition of the Megacast.